Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to shoot the first of a few videos about items from Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge. Now there's a lot of speculation about these items because Disney has been very close to the vest about these. You can get them at Galaxy's Edge, but you can't get them really anywhere else. So people have been going to Disneyland, buying a lot of the stuff from Galaxy's Edge, sometimes stealing some of the stuff like the menus and the spoons from Galaxy's Edge, and then fencing it online pretty much on eBay for sometimes several $100% of the asking cost. So today I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an insight into what these items are, so you know that so you can try to figure out whether or not they're worth some of the ridiculous prices that people have been asking for, or whether they're worth doing like I did and waiting until somebody that you know goes to Disneyland and seeing if they'd be willing to pick some items up for you. So it's a little bit harder to gauge these things because they are at such a distance unless you're actually in the park. At that point you're committed. So I wanted to give you guys first a look at the lightsabers. Now, the Galaxy's Edge offers a bunch of lightsabers. The Legacy sabers that come in boxes, I don't have one of those here with me, but those are very similar to the Black Series sabers, except with a little bit of an update that I'll show you with the blade in just a moment. What I have here in front of me is a Savi lightsaber, or a Savi Saber Builder's saber. Now what this is when you go to Disneyland, you can get a reservation to go have the lightsaber building experience. And so basically you get a reservation, you get a beeper, I think, or a buzzer or something like that, and then when it's your turn, you go into a room, you pick out parts, you create your own lightsaber, you put a crystal in it. They have people come in dressed like some of the Star Wars characters. They have accents on the roof light. There's videos of all of this online if you really want to see what the whole experience is like. But it's a rather sort of complete thing, and then you walk out at the end of it with a lightsaber. So what I wanted to look at, because the experience, whether or not that's worth the money to you, if you're going to Disneyland, you're probably you probably have some money to throw around anyways. But I wanted to look at the lightsaber and whether or not it was worth it, because there's some speculation about this. So first off, when you get a lightsaber from the Savi Saber Builder experience, you get it in this lightsaber holder. Now this has instructions on it and everything. It's got a shoulder strap. The lightsaber only goes in here one way. As you can see, this little joint right here. There's basically like a pool noodle in here that the blade goes into, and a thinner pool noodle type thing up here that the hilt goes into. So it only fits in one way. And it's very top heavy, so if you just set it down on something, it's very likely to fall over. But inside of here is the Savi lightsaber. Alright, so one of the things about the Savi Saber building experience is the blades that come with these. They sell extra blades at Galaxy's Edge in the gift shop. The Black Spire Outfitters, I believe, or Antiquities or something like that. But they sell the extra blades. But this length of blade is only available through the experience. I think this is like a 31 inch. They do 36 inches and I think either 28 or 24, a shorter one. But this is somewhere in the middle, and it's only available through the experience. So let me show you the blade first off. If you push in on the blade and twist, it pops out. And you hear that the lightsaber notices that the blade is out. So if I try to turn it on at this point, all it gives me is this sort of short circuit sound. All right, but here's the blade. This is a string blade, so it's actually fairly low grade PVC on the outer edge of this. It's very transparent, very transparent, but very thin and brittle feeling. And the tip of the tube here, you can see, is not very well done. It's glued on here at the end, and you can see right down the thing. There's the LED strip in there that you can see right through the tip. There we go. So this has that LED strip all the way down it. It's diffused, but it's diffused with a very thin foam. I think you can probably see that right there. See that foam around the outside with the strip in the middle? So it's a very thin foam that doesn't diffuse it very well. But the blade, I mean, it is what it is, and because it's a string blade, you get all the things like the power up and the power down effect that you get with a string blade. All right, the saber itself, you'll see that it's quite a bit on the larger side. It is metal. though it's like a poured molded base metal as opposed to a milled aluminum like you're used to in some of the other sabers. So what that means is that in a lot of the sabers, they start with a piece of aluminum, they put it on a mill machine, and they mill out the details. This one, they heat up the metal and they drop it into a mold. And what that ends up meaning is that you end up with seams. Let me see, here we go. You can see that seam right across there. Okay, you end up with seams in the metal, and it also has sort of a plastic look to it, though it has the heft and tink of metal. All right, the paint that's on these things is paint, it's not a powder coat, so as you can see here, let me see if I can get that, there we go. As you can see here and here, the paint does chip. Okay, this is the power and control version, so this is the Sith designed one. You choose when you go to the Savi experience whether you want the nature, which is like wood and leather, but I think a lot of people are going for that one because it's the most different. But for my money, it was the least appealing because of the fact that it is all this base metal and it's painted. The metal parts actually still look like metal, especially from a distance. But when you've got metal painted pieces that are designed to look like bone and wood, to me they just kind of looked cheesy. But there was that one, there was a Jedi version, and there was an Old Republic sort of themed version. The Old Republic one was pretty cool, but I went for the Sith one. And what you do is they bring you out a tray, and you have two choices for every option. So 2 choices for the emitter, 2 choices for the pommel, 2 choices for the emitter, and 2 choices, switch, sorry, not emitter, emitter, switch, pommel, and 2 choices for the body, or for each of the body sections. Okay, this thing has a CoverTech wheel, and basically what it is, you can unscrew this pommel, and you see that the pommel isn't screwed into the other metal pieces. It's screwed into this plastic chassis that's underneath. The speaker and the batteries are right here, so this is the part that comes out like in the Black Series, and you replace the AAA batteries. But it screws onto this plastic core. The body pieces do screw into the middle bit a little bit. Okay, the emitter screws onto the plastic core, and here's that blade socket right here where you push in and twist to get the blade to go on. Okay, you can see it flashing in there right now. I have a purple crystal in this. The LED in here changes colors based off of which crystal you have. I'll get to the crystals in just a second. But this is the plastic body, and then there's the switch. Okay, the switch comes off in 2 pieces, or a bracket, and inside there is the crystal. All right, now just the base lightsaber, just a little bit about the functionality of it. Whatever crystal you put in there, an LED will come up under the crystal and flash up here. That's the color of the crystal. So right here we've got a blue, or a purple one rather. So if I put the blade in, you get that connection sound. Okay. And the switch sections have these little color indicators. So there's blue right here, there's blue right here. This is telling you which side of this section the switch goes on. So if I just pop the switch section back on, there's a red tab right here, red tab right there. If I just pop the switch section back on, I can power up the lightsaber. Alright, so here we have the purple blade. You notice there's not much tip illumination. The diffusion on this, while it looks pretty good on film, there's a lot of what people call the corn cobbing on here, where you can see the space between the different LEDs rather clearly. So it's not the best diffused. It's nowhere near what you get with a lot of NeoPixel blades. So it's definitely not even light distribution, but it does the job well enough on screen. Alright, so we have a sound font. We have flash. You notice that the blade flickers on flash there. It actually flashes white. Alright, we've got this on-off switch. Switch it off. Alright, now, when you go through the experience, they give you 1 crystal. You can buy extra crystals in the shop. So for instance, if I didn't want this to be purple, or if I wanted to have the option, this is spring-loaded, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get out of there. But if you push up and slide the bottom out, the crystal comes out. The crystal has a little chip in it that tells the saber what to do. So if I load up the red one, Like I said, kind of a pain in the butt, but load the top and then try to get it into that little groove so that it doesn't fall out on you. There we go. You notice red light, red light. Red light. Now, one of the interesting things about this is an RGB saber, meaning it can do purple. The crystals that they have are purple, red, yellow, blue, green, and white. There is a black crystal as well, but the black crystal, as far as the saber is concerned, is just red. But you notice something about that, between the purple and the red? The sound font changed as well. And now I'm getting flash on clash in yellow instead of white. All right, shut this down, pop off my switch, pop out my red crystal, and let's pop in a white. Okay, kind of a bluish light, but a white light, but more or less a white light. Now, as I'm getting this together, one of the interesting things about this is people who have looked at those chips and looked at the board on this and have a lot more technical know-how than I do, have said that there is like an aqua color and a orange color coated into it as well. The LED here recognizes that, but the blade doesn't. So eventually, if they do add an orange and an aqua, they're probably going to try to sell you a new blade. But here's the white. Completely different sound font. All right, and if you try to turn the saber on when there's no blade in it, it gives you that short circuit sound. If you try to turn the saber on when there's no crystal in it, it gives you a slightly different short circuit sound. So let me go ahead and piece this back together. I may have mentioned, I'm not certain, but when you go through the experience, whichever design you choose, you get a little pin that reflects that. So I chose the power and control, and it's sort of a Bauhaus style design. The Old Republic is kind of Art Deco. There's a list of them online, but they're all sort of differently inspired. But here, I'll plug this all back together. Let's see, I think I had this on here like this. No. Now, I've also heard tell that if you have parts from different design profiles, like for instance one power and control part and one nature part, they used to let you buy the extra parts or scrap metal. My understanding is that they don't anymore, or they don't currently. But also my understanding was if you had parts from different sets, there was a pretty good chance that they weren't going to line up and you were going to end up with gaps. But plug it all back together here. Yeah, one other sort of flaw in this design is that swappability of the crystal, while it is a really neat feature, it's kind of hard to pull off. When I had this thing all apart, I was just pulling apart the switch section and sticking a new crystal in. But when the saber's all assembled, in order to do that, you have to loosen the pommel, you have to loosen the emitter, you have to remove both body sections from the middle, and only then can you pull the middle apart to be able to switch the crystal. So switching the crystal out without having the saber fully stripped down is a very tricky proposition and requires a whole bunch of loosening of parts in order to make it happen. So not the best design for the switch section itself. All right, so there it is. My thoughts on the Savi Saber by and large, positives on it. I like the crystal set. While it is a way for Disney to make you buy a bunch of plastic crystals that you don't need, these work with the holocrons, and I'll get to those in another review. But I like the idea of the crystal setup where you have to swap in the crystal in order to change the blade color, and it changes the whole feel of the Saber in terms of the sound font and color and everything. So I really like that idea. The design of the Saber, though, this whole thing is super heavy. So heavy that this sort of fragile, comparatively fragile blade, if you were to actually try to use this thing, for one, it's kind of unwieldy. For two, especially because there's things that jut out to make it easier to pull apart the switch section, it's kind of unwieldy, and also if you were to drop it, the weight of this Saber, which is rather substantial, can break this blade, or could very easily break this blade if it landed like this. All right, now there's a company online that I saw, Renev Forge or something like that, and they make aluminum, thin aluminum pieces that fit over that chassis. And that actually is a rather solid idea because it's these base metal parts, or these poured metal parts, that are so heavy. The chassis all by itself and all the electronics is a reasonable size, and it's fairly light, and it would actually be usable. You wouldn't want to drop it because, again, the blade is kind of terrible, but it would be a lot more usable. So as it sits with this, it's clunky, it's heavy, it's fragile. It'll work its way out of alignment, and these pieces, since they are poured metal, they can just snap. Whereas aluminum would just dent. These would probably break if you were to drop them. So I like the crystal design, or the crystal setup, and the swappability of it. The rest of the Saber isn't particularly usable, so really my whole reading on this is a toy. This is a collector's item, it's a toy, it's fun, it's good to have on a shelf, it's good to play around with and swap the crystals in and out. But if you're looking for a Saber for sport or for use or anything like that, then the Savi Saber is definitely not a direction that you should go. Consider it a toy, consider it a collection. If you have like an action figure collection or something, this is a good complement to that. But it's not, strictly speaking, for use. It will work for cosplay, it will work for photo shoots and that sort of thing, but it's not for use. So hopefully this has been of use to you guys. This is the Savi Saber. And join me back next time. We'll take a look at the holocrons and the crystals and how those work when you use them with something else. See you next time.